Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of the Year of Stories for the Year of Blank podcast. I'm your host, Sukrayaro, and I am so sorry if my voice sounds atrocious. I may be sick, or I may have allergies, but my throat feels like I have been gargling glass for several hours, and it's felt like that since last night, which is sort of upsetting, but we push on. After this, I should probably record some emergency possible sick day thing so I don't have to suffer in case, and I can just post one of the sick day recordings. Um where we left where we last left off was after the boy met his first witch. If you forget, you can just listen back to the first episode, I guess, cuz I don't know. I don't know the solution that would work. But now we are on, I forget which chapter because they don't number the chapters. We're on summer holidays. Oh, and I have water this time. If you remember last time, my throat started dying towards the end because I didn't have water and I didn't hydrate the entire time that I was recording. We have water today! We have water! Who's proud of me? You can't reply to that, but send me the vibes, y'all. That's so cringy. Oh my god. I'm so sorry. My sincerest apologies for that. Holy sh... Whew. Didn't swear I didn't do it. Let's hydrate a little. Let's hydrate. Summer holidays. Oh my god. I'm not gonna survive, y'all. I'm not. The Easter. I'm so sorry for all of your ears. Oh my god, no one wants to hear that, and I can't edit it out, and it's just gonna keep happening, so if I try to go back... Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh my god. Oh. Someone needs to teach me audio editing pronto. Oh my goodness gracious. The Easter holidays came and went, and the summer term began at I'm sorry, British children go to school in the What? Whew. I mean... Oh, wait. Maybe I'm confused. I'll have to look this up later. Oh yeah, I had some things to say in regards to the last thing. Oh wait, when is... I need to look this up. Hang on. Ignore the fact that I am typing vigorously. Okay. I learned it is Lunar New Year, not just Chinese New Year. Thank you, friend in Discord server, who has known about this podcast occurring for a while before it even started, for informing me with your commentary as you listen to the last episode. And apparently the coil stovetop thing that I was talking about that I didn't know the name of, it's an electric stove. I double confirmed it. Thank you yet again to Discord friend. Well, I'll have to check if they're chill with me saying names and stuff, because I don't know. So I should have asked that. Oh my gosh. Even they'll know it's them. But people who interact with me will know who I'm talking about. But I don't know. I'll have to check. Or they'll listen to this and just live commentary along and say their response. Anyway. And the summer term began at school. My grandmother and I had already planned to take our summer holiday in Norway, and we talked about almost nothing else every evening. Wait, now I'm confused. I thought you were in school. Do you say summer term even though it's summer vacation? I'm so confused. What is up with these European people? People. That is the word I was going to say the entire time. Entire time. Yes. People. Um, She had booked a cabin for each of us on the boat from Newcastle to Oslo at the earliest possible moment after my school broke up, and from Oslo she was going to take me to a place she knew down on the south coast near Arendal. Arendelle? What is this, Frozen? Wait, is Arendelle a real place? Um, Discord friend, you know who you are. Inform me later once this is posted and you can tell me. Give me the info. You are my facts person. Confirmed. Non-debate. I mean, you can make your own decisions. This is comedy. I'm not that funny. Oh my god. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Where were we? Where were No, seriously, where were we? Arendelle, where she spent her own summer holidays as a child nearly 80 years ago. Damn, your granny old. That's how grandmas work. That's how Oh my god. Oh my god. Um, I'm sorry, I heard a noise. Hello? It might be my cat wanting to come into my room, or it might be a random person. Um, if there's a random person outside my door, please don't come in. I'm recording. Okay? We're chilling. If you're my cat, put your paw under the door and I'll let you in. Disclaimer, she didn't put her paw under the door. If she did, I would be frantically going to my baby angel child. Oh, I've never talked about my cat. She is chunky. She's wonderful. Her name is Riley. I love her so much. She is my baby, my precious. And she also reminds me to eat breakfast. Like, I'll be downstairs, it's early in the morning, we're the only ones awake, and she will, like, flutter around my legs, meowing and rubbing on my legs until I get breakfast. It's so sweet. I love her. All day long, she said, my brother and I were out in the rowing boat. The whole coast is dotted with tiny islands, and there's nothing on them. Nobody on them. We used to explore them and dive into the sea off the lovely smooth granite rocks, and sometimes on the way out we would drop the anchor and fish for cod and whiting. Whiting? Is that kind of fish? I know nothing. I know nothing about fishing and boat people. That's... boat people are a different breed, man. Oh, is that offensive? I'm sorry if anyone was offended by that. If you're a boat person, I'm sorry. I repent for my past statements. Please don't hurt me. Um, um, and if we caught anything, we would build a fire on the island and fry the fish in a pan for our lunch. There is no finer fish in the world than absolutely fresh cod. What did you use for bait, Grandmama, when you went fishing? Mussels, she said. Not mussels as in strong, but mussels as in like the sea thing, the sea creature. She said, everyone uses mussels for bait in Norway. If we didn't catch any fish, we would boil the mussels in a saucepan and eat those. Were they good? Delicious, she said. Cook them in seawater and they are tender and salty. What else? I'm sorry, I got distracted by the image. What else did you do, Grandmama? We used to row out and wave to the shrimp boats on their way home. I'm sorry, I read shrimp and I immediately thought they were just waving at like jumbo humanized shrimp, and I was very confused, and then I read more and I was like, shrimp boat? You can sail on a shrimp? And then I realized, oh, they probably got the big net boys and they're catching shrimp to feed the people. I disappoint myself constantly. and they would stop and give us a handful of shrimps each. The shrimps were still warm from having been just cooked, and we would sit in the rowing boat peeling them and gobbling them up. The head was the best part. The head, I said. You squeeze the head between your teeth and suck out the inside. What kind of vampire moment? Vampire moment? Grandmama vampire, canonically? It's marvelous. You and I will do all those things this summer, my darling, she said. Grandmama, I said, I can't wait. I simply can't wait to go. Nor can I, she said. When there were only 3 weeks of the summer term left, an awful thing happened. My grandmother got pneumonia. She became very ill, and a trained nurse moved into the house to look after her. The doctor explained to me that pneumonia is not normally a dangerous illness nowadays because of penicillin. But when a person is more than 80 years old, as my grandmother was, then it is very dangerous indeed. I told you that age would be significant. Well, no, I didn't, but I said she was old, and that's how grandmas work. My apologies, we had to hydrate. He said he didn't even dare to move her to hospital in her condition, so she stayed in her bedroom and I hung about outside the door while oxygen cylinders and all sorts of other frightening things were taken into her. I might shorten this recording because I am dying. Holy shit, is that... Never mind, we're not saying that. We're not saying that. There might be children. There might be children. There probably isn't because we're just starting out, but still. No, dear, the nurse said. Not at the moment. A fat and jolly lady called Mrs. Spring, who used to come and clean our house every day, also moved in and slept in the house. Mrs. Spring looked after me and cooked my meals. I liked her very much, but she wasn't a patch on my grandmother for telling stories. One evening, about 10 days later, the doctor came downstairs and said to me, You can go in and see her now, but only for a short time. She's been asking for you. I flew up the stairs and burst into my grandmother's room and threw myself into her arms. Hey there, the nurse said. Be careful with her. Will you be all right now, Grandmama? I asked. The worst is over, she said. I'll soon be up again. Will she? I said to the nurse. Oh, yes, the nurse answered, smiling. She told us she simply had to get better because she had to look after you. I gave her another hug. They won't let me have a cigar, she said, but you wait till they're gone. Granny, your lungs dying, and you want to smoke? What? Dang, Granny. Built different. She's a tough old bird, the nurse said. We'll have her up in another week. I'm sorry for all the pauses. I'm trying not to violently cough. I almost choked on water. We're trying our best, yo. We're trying. We're doing it. We're putting in the work. We're putting in the hours. We're taking what's out. I'm so sorry. This is dating this podcast so much. The nurse was right. Within a week, my grandmother was thumping around the house with her gold-topped cane and interfering with Mrs. Spring's cooking. I thank you for all your help, Mrs. Spring, she said, but you can go home now. Oh, no, I can't, Mrs. Spring said. Doctor told me to see that you take it very easy for the next few days. The doctor said more than that. He dropped a bombshell on my grandmother and me by telling us that on no account were we to risk the journey to Norway this summer. Rubbish, my grandmother cried. I've promised him we'll go. It's too far, the doctor said. It would be very dangerous, but I'll tell you what you can do. You can take your grandson to a nice hotel on the south coast of England instead. The sea air is just what you need. Oh no, I said. The doctor gets so aggressive with this child, and for what? He's like, what, 8? I think? I forget. Do you want your grandmother to die? Sir? This is a child. You can't say this to a child. He's gone through a lot. The parents are dead. The granny's all he got left. You can't just... Boom! Do you want her to die? No! Never, I said. Then don't let her go on a long journey this summer. She's not yet strong enough, and stop her smoking those vile black cigars. Well, that's when you eat them instead. Please don't eat cigars. Genuinely. That was a joke. Don't eat cigars. They're not healthy. In the end, the doctor had his way about the holiday, but not about the cigars. Rooms were booked for us in a place called the Hotel Magnificent in the famous seaside town of Bournemouth. Bournemouth, or Bournemouth, I don't know. Europeans are weird. No offense, Europeans. Bournemouth, my grandmother told me, was full of old people like herself. They retired there by the thousand because the air was so bracing and healthy it kept them, so they believed, alive for a few extra years. Does it? I asked. Of course not, she said. It's Tommy Rot, but just for once I think we've got to obey the doctor. Soon after that, my grandmother and I took the train to Bournemouth and settled into the Hotel Magnificent. It was an enormous white building on the seafront, and it looked to me like a pretty boring place to spend a summer holiday in. I had my own separate bedroom, but there was a door connecting my room with my grandmother's room so that we could visit each other without going into the corridor. The amount of effort not to cough, and I don't even know if my volume's good enough, so if you can't hear, I'm sorry. It looks like I'm getting picked up, but I don't know. I'll do better next time, I promise. Oh shoot, I messed up my page. Just before we left for Bournemouth, my grandmother had given me, as consolation, a present of 2 white mice in a little cage, and of course took me. They were terrific fun, those mice. I called them William and Mary, and in the hotel I set out right away teaching them to do tricks. The first trick I taught them was to creep up the sleeve of my jacket and come out by my neck. Then I taught them to climb up the back of my neck onto the top of my head. I did this by putting cake crumbs in my hair. Who's this guy trying to be? Bruno Madrigal? If you haven't seen Encanto, watch it. Encanto. I don't know the proper pronunciation, but I'm trying. I'm a little low on water somehow. I don't. On the very first morning after our arrival, the chambermaid was making my bed when one of my mice poked its head out from under the sheets. The maid let out a shriek that brought a dozen people running to see who was being murdered. I was reported to the manager. There followed an unpleasant scene in the manager's office with the manager, my grandmother, and me. The manager, whose name was Mr. Stringer, was a bristly man in a black tailcoat. I cannot permit mice in my hotel, madam, he said to my grandmother. How dare you say that when your hotel is full of rats anyway? My grandmother cried. Rats? Cried Mr. Stringer, going mauve? I don't know. Probably mauve in the face. There are no rats in this hotel. I saw one this very morning, my grandmother said. It was running down the corridor into the kitchen. That is not true, cried Mr. Stringer. You had better get the rat catcher in at once, my grandmother said. Before I report you to the public health authorities, I expect there's rats scuttling all over the kitchen floor and stealing the food off the shelves and jumping in and out of the soup. Ratatouille moment? Never, cried Mr. Stringer. No wonder my breakfast toast was all nibbled round the edges this morning. My grandmother went on relentlessly. No wonder it had a nasty, ratty taste. If you're not careful, the health people will be ordering the entire hotel to be closed before everyone gets typhoid fever. You are not being serious, madam, Mr. Stringer said. I was never more serious in my life, my grandmother said. Are you or are you not going to allow my grandson to keep his white mice in his room? The manager knew when he was beaten. May I suggest a compromise, madam, he said. I will permit him to keep them in his room as long as they are never allowed out of the cage. How's that? That will suit us very well, my grandmother said, and she stood up and marched out of the room with me behind her. There is no way you can train mice inside a cage. Yet I dared not let them out because the chambermaid was spying on me all the time. She had a key to my door and she kept busting in at all hours, trying to catch me with the mice out of the cage. She told me that the first mouse to break the rules would be drowned in a bucket of water by the hall porter. I feel like that's illegal for the chambermaid to, barge into the room. Like, I feel like there's something against that. That feels wrong. I decided to seek a safer place where I could carry on with the training. There must surely be an empty room in this enormous hotel. I put one mouse in each trouser pocket and wandered downstairs in search of a secret spot. The ground floor of the hotel was a maze of public rooms, all of them named in gold letters on the doors. I wandered through the lounge and the smoking room and the card room and the reading room and the drawing room. None of them was empty. I went down a long, wide corridor, and at the end of it, I came to the ballroom. There were double doors leading into it, and in front of the doors there was a large notice board on a stand. The notice on the board said, RSPCC meeting, strictly private. The room is reserved for the annual meeting of the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. The double doors into the room were open. I peeked in. It was a colossal room. There were rows and rows of chairs, all facing a platform. The chairs were painted gold, and they had little red cushions on the seats. But there was not a soul in sight. This dumb little boy. I sidled cautiously into the room. What a lovely, secret, silent place it was. The meeting of the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children must have taken place earlier in the day. And now they had all gone home. Or it's occurring later, you donut. Ugh. Even if they hadn't, even if they did suddenly come pouring in, they would be wonderful, kind people who would look with favor upon a young mouse trainer going about his business. At the back of the room, there was a large floating screen with Chinese dragons painted on it. I decided, just to be on the safe side, to go behind the screen and do my training there. I wasn't a bit frightened of the prevention of cruelty to children people, but there was always a chance that Mr. Stringer, the manager, might pop his head around the door. If he did, and if he saw the mice, the poor things would be in the hall porter's bucket of water before I could shout stop. I tiptoed to the back of the room and settled myself on the thick green carpet behind the big screen. What a splendid place this was, ideal for mouse training. I took William and Mary out of my trouser pockets. They sat beside me on the carpet, quiet and well behaved. The trick I was going to teach them today was tightrope walking. It is not all that difficult to train an intelligent mouse to be an expert tightrope walker, provided you know exactly how to go about it. First, you must have a piece of string. I had that. Then you must have some good cake. A fine currant cake is the favorite food of white mice. They are dotty about it. I had brought with me a rock cake which I had pocketed while having tea with my grandmama the day before. Now here's what you do. You stretch the string tight between your two hands, but you start by keeping it very short, only about 3 inches. You put the mouse on your right hand and a little piece of cake on your left hand. The mouse is therefore only 3 inches away from the cake. He can see it and he can smell it. His whiskers twitch with excitement. You can almost reach the cake by leaning forward, but not quite. He only has to take 2 steps along the string to reach this tasty morsel. He ventures forward, one paw on the string, then the other. If the mouse has a good sense of balance, and most of them have, he will get across easily. I started with William. He walked the string without a moment's hesitation. I let him have a quick nibble of the cake just to whet his appetite. Then I put him back on my right hand. This time I lengthened the string. I made it about 6 inches long. William knew what to do now. With superb balance, he walked step by step along the string until he reached the cake. He was rewarded with another nibble. Quite soon, William was walking a 24-inch tightrope, a rather tight string, from one hand to the other to reach the cake. It was wonderful to watch him. He was enjoying himself tremendously. I was careful to hold the string near the carpet so that if he did lose his balance, he wouldn't have far to fall, but he never fell. William was obviously a natural acrobat, a great tightrope walking mouse. Now it was Mary's turn. I put William on the carpet beside me and rewarded him with some extra crumbs and a currant. Then I started going through the same routine all over again with Mary. My blinding ambition, you see, my dream of dreams, was to become one day the owner of a white mouse circus. I would have a small stage with red curtains in front of it, and when the curtains were drawn apart, the audience would see my world-famous performing mice walking on tightrope, swinging from trapezes, turning somersaults in the air, bouncing on trampolines, and all the rest of it. I would have white mice riding on white rats and the rats gallop furiously round and round the stage. I was beginning to picture myself traveling first class all over the globe with my famous white mouse circus, and performing before all the crowned heads of Europe. I was about halfway through Mary's training when suddenly I heard voices outside the ballroom door. The sound grew louder. It swelled into a great babble of speech from many throats. I recognized the voice of the awful hotel manager, Mr. Stringer. Help, I thought, but thank heavens for the good scream, for the huge scream. Whew. Uh, the, uh, my brain is dying, y'all. To continue for just another 5 minutes, or to continue for the typical hour goal. I can do it. I can do it. I believe in myself. I believe in myself. I crouched behind it and peered through the crack between two of the folding sections. I could see the entire length and width of the ballroom without anyone seeing me. Well, ladies, I am sure you will be quite comfortable in here, Mr. Stringer's voice was saying. Then and through the double doors he marched, black tailcoat and all, spreading his arms wide as he ushered in a great flock of ladies. If there is anything we can do for you, you do not hesitate to let me know, he went on. Tea will be served for all of you on the Sunshine Terrace after you have concluded your meeting. With that, he bowed and scraped himself out of the room as a vast herd of ladies from the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children came streaming in. They wore pretty clothes and all of them had hats on their heads. You know where this is going, right? You know where this is going, right? The meeting. Now that the manager had gone, I was not particularly alarmed. What better than to be imprisoned in a room full of these splendid ladies? If I ever got talking to them, I might even suggest that they come and do a bit of cruelty to children preventing at my school. We could certainly use them there. In they came, talking their heads off. They began milling round and choosing their seats. And there was a whole lot of stuff like, come and sit next to me, Millie dear, and oh, hello, Beatrice. I haven't seen you since the last meeting. What an adorable dress you have on. That's white lady conversation right there, y'all. I decided to stay where I was and let them get on with their meeting while I got on with my mouse training, but I watched them for a while longer through the crack in the screen, waiting for them to settle down. How many were there? I guessed about 200. The back rows filled up first. They all seemed to want to sit as far back from the platform as possible. There was a lady wearing a tiny green hat in the middle of the back row who kept scratching at the nape of her neck. She couldn't leave it alone. It fascinated me the way her fingers kept scratching away at the hair on the back of her neck. Had she known somebody was watching her from behind, I'm sure she would have been embarrassed. I wondered if she had dandruff. All of a sudden, I noticed that the lady next to her was doing the same thing. And the next one. And the next. The whole lot of them were doing it. They were all scratching away like mad at the hair on the backs of their necks. Did they have fleas in their hair? More likely it was nits. I think nits is British lice. A boy at school called Ashton had had nits in his hair last term, and the matron had made him dip his whole head in turpentine. It killed the nits all right, but it nearly killed Ashton as well. Half the skin came away from his scalp. Holy cow, bro. What? I began to be fascinated by these hair-scratching ladies. It is always funny when you catch someone doing something coarse and she thinks no one is looking. Nose picking, for example, or scratching her bottom. Hair scratching is very nearly as unattractive, especially if it goes on and on. Bro, sometimes you got an itch, and you gotta scratch it. I get the nose picking thing is sort of like not essential. So like I get that being like, that's sort of weird to do in public. But like, who cares if you gotta scratch your butt? You gotta scratch your butt. Things happen, bro. Get over it, you pubescent little lad. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna continue with that joke because it's so dumb. I'm sorry. Ugh. I decided it had to be nits. Then a most astonishing thing happened. I saw one lady pushing her fingers up underneath the hair on her head, and the entire head of hair, lifted upwards all in one piece, and the hand slid underneath the hair and went on scratching. She was wearing a wig. She was also wearing gloves. I glanced swiftly around the rest of the now seated audience. Every one of them was wearing gloves. My blood turned to ice. I began to shake all over. I glanced frantically behind me for a back door to escape through. There wasn't one. Should I leap out from behind the screen and make a dash for the double doors? Those double doors were already closed, and I could see a woman standing in front of them. She was bending forward and fixing some sort of a metal chain round the two door handles. Keep still, I told myself. No one has seen you yet. There's no reason in the world why they should come and look behind the screen. But one false move, one cough, one sneeze, one nose blow, one little sound of any sort, and it won't be just one witch that gets you. It'll be 200. Y'all, remember what the granny said? They can smell him. They can smell him, and he's being dumb and forgetting that. At that point, I think I fainted. The whole thing was altogether too much for a small boy to cope with, but I don't believe I was out for more than a few seconds, and when I came to, I was lying on the carpet and I was still, thank heavens, behind the screen. There was absolute silence all around me. Rather shakily, I got to my knees and peered once again through the crack in the screen. All the women, or rather the witches, were now sitting motionless in their chairs and staring as though hypnotized at somebody who had suddenly appeared on the platform. That somebody was another woman. Oh, there's the dog. Oh, there's my sister. And she's chasing the dogs. I'm recording. I am recording. My sister, everybody, being a nuisance. I'm recording, Jack, for my podcast. Oops, I name dropped. Forget that.
Delete this entire thing.
Bro! It's 31 minutes in and I am sick. My throat hurts. I am not starting over. Also, I keep the bloopers anyway.
Why?
Because I can't audio edit.
Bitch.
We don't swear on this podcast. Suddenly all of you are deaf. And now you're no longer deaf.
You wanna go eat, bro?
Bro, I'm recording. Can I finish my Actually, it'll be 30 minutes till I'm done my recording. I was actually thinking of finishing early.
Just redo this entire recording.
I'm not gonna redo this entire recording. This is bringing comedy. This is bringing energy. This is
bringing life.
This is bringing life. Thank you, fair sibling, for barging into my room. Ah, my knee. Oh my god, my knee. My knee! Hydration. I totally didn't almost choke on it. Anyway, I started coughing and then she started coughing very briefly afterwards. I'm sorry for your ears.
Rip headphone.
Indeed, R.I.P. headphone users. Oh my god.
Did you say R.I.P.?
Yeah, I did. I don't even know if the mic is picking you up. Hang on, say something.
Ah!
Okay, it picked that up because it was fairly loud. Oh my god, the dog is barking at you. And I don't know if you can pick it up, but the mic is like picking it up very faintly. Excuse me. Bro, there's like no, I can do math.
Then scrap the entire thing.
No. I can like pause the recording for food, I guess.
Yes.
We're gonna pause for now. When I come back, it's not gonna be like time passed, but time will have passed for me. Okay? So I'll be back, I suppose, if this gremlin child lets me return. I'm back now. We had chicken noodle soup. Well, I did. My sister, who demanded we eat, had mac and cheese. Might have had too much soup for my sick little self. But we're gonna tough it out. Frizzled like a fritter. All the women, or rather the witches, were now sitting motionless in their chairs and staring as though hypnotized at somebody who had suddenly appeared on the platform. That somebody was another woman. The first thing I noticed about this woman was her size. She was tiny, probably no more than 4.5 feet. She looked quite young, I guessed about 25 or 6, and she was very pretty. She had on a rather stylish long black dress that reached right to the ground, and she wore black gloves that came up to her elbows. Unlike the others, she wasn't wearing a hat. She didn't look to me like a witch at all, but she couldn't possibly be one. But she couldn't possibly not be one. Sorry. Otherwise, what on earth was she doing up there on the platform? And why, for heaven's sake, were all the other witches gazing at her with such a mixture of adoration, awe, and fear? Gonna hydrate. Very slowly, the young lady on the platform raised her hands to her face. I saw her gloved fingers unhooking something behind her ears, and then she caught hold of her cheeks and lifted her face clean away. The whole of that pretty face came away in her hands. It was a mask. Coronavirus. As she took up the mask, she turned sideways and placed it carefully upon a small table nearby, and when she turned round again and faced us, I very nearly screamed out loud. That face of hers was the most frightful and frightening thing I have ever seen. Just looking at it gave me the shakes all over. It was so crumpled and wizened, so shrunken and shriveled. It looked as though it had been pickled in vinegar. It was a fearsome and ghastly sight. There was something terribly wrong with it, something foul and putrid and decayed. It seemed quite excuse me. It seemed quite literally to be rotting away at the edges, and in the middle of the face, around the mouth and cheeks, I could see the skin all cankered and worm-eaten, as though maggots were working away in there. Oh, that makes me uncomfortable to visualize. There are times when something is so frightful you become mesmerized by it and can't look away. I was like that now. I was transfixed. I was numbed. I was magnetized by the sheer horror of this woman's features. But there was more to it than that. There was a look of serpents in those eyes of hers as they flashed around the audience. I knew immediately, of course, that this was none other than the Grand High Witch herself. I knew also why she had worn a mask. She could never have moved around in public, let alone book in at an hotel. Do they not pronounce the H at an hotel? That's so weird. With her real face. Everyone who saw her would have run away screaming. "The doors!" shouted the Grand High Witch in a voice that filled the room and bounced around the walls. "Are they chained and bolted?" "The doors are chained and bolted, your grandness," answered a voice in the audience. The brilliant snake's eyes that were set so deep in that dreadful, rotting, worm-eaten face glared unblinkingly at the witches who sat facing her. "You may remove your gloves," she shouted. Her voice, I noticed, had that same hard, metallic quality as the voice of the witch I had met under the conker tree, only it was far louder and much, much harsher. It rasped, it grated, it snarled, it scraped, it shrieked, and it growled. Everyone in the room was peeling off her gloves. I was watching the hands of those in the back row. I wanted very much to see what their fingers looked like, and whether my grandmother had been right. Ah, yes, I could see several of them now. I could see the brown claws curving over the tips of the fingers. They were about 2 inches long, those claws, and sharp at the ends. "You may remove your shoes." I'm trying to do like an accent, but I have no idea. Sorry. My apologies. Imagers. Barked the Grand High Witch. I heard a sigh of relief going up from all the witches in the room as they kicked off their narrow, high-heeled shoes, and then I got a glimpse under the chairs of several pairs of stockinged feet, square and completely toeless. Revolting they were, as though the toes had been sliced away from the feet with a carving knife. That's a Cinderella moment, guys, if you read the original Cinderella. Or at least know some things of the original Cinderella. You may remove your wigs. What the hell kind of accent am I doing for this woman? Oops. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Snarled the Grand High Witch. She had a peculiar way of speaking. There was some sort of foreign accent there, something harsh and guttural, and she seemed to have trouble pronouncing the letter W. As well as that, she did something funny with the letter R. She would roll it round and round her mouth like a piece of hot pork crackling before spitting it out. Remove your wigs and get some fresh air into your spotty scalps, she shouted. And another sigh of relief arose from the audience as all the hands went up to the heads and all the wigs, with the hats still on them, were lifted away. The way they're drawn looks semi-weird, not gonna lie. There now appeared in front of me, row upon row of bald female heads, a sea of naked scalps, every one of them red and itchy looking from being rubbed by the linings of the wigs. I simply cannot tell you how awful they were, and somehow the whole sight was made more grotesque because underneath those frightful scabby bald heads, the bodies were dressed in fashionable and rather pretty clothes. It was monstrous. It was unnatural. Oh, yes. Unnatural to be bald. Oh heavens, I thought. Oh help. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. These foul, bald-headed females are child killers, every one of them. And here I am imprisoned in the same room, and I can't escape. At that point, a new and doubly horrifying thought struck me. My grandmother had said that with their special nose holes they could smell out a child on a pitch-black night from right across the other side of the road. Up to now, my grandmother had been right every time. It seemed a certainty, therefore, that one of the witches in the back row was going to sniff me out at any moment, and then the yell of dog's droppings would go up all over the room, and I would be cornered like a rat. I knelt on the carpet behind the screen, hardly daring to breathe. Then suddenly I remembered another very important thing my grandmother had told me. The dirtier you are, she had said, the harder it is for a witch to smell you out. How long since I had last had a bath? Not for ages. I had my own room in the hotel, and my grandmother never bothered with silly things like that. Come to think of it, I don't believe I'd had a bath since we arrived. When had I last washed my hands or face? Certainly not this morning. Not yesterday either. I glanced down at my hands. They were covered with smudge and mud, and goodness knows what else besides. So perhaps I had a chance after all. The stink waves couldn't possibly get out through all that dirt. Witches of England. Oh, that's supposed to be England. England. Shouted the Grand High Witch. She herself, I noticed, had not taken off either her wig or her gloves or her shoes. Witches of England! England! She yelled. The audience stirred uneasily and sat up straighter in their chairs. I'm not even going to try with the accent anymore. I'm sorry. Miserable witches. Bitches. I'll at least say the B's instead of W's. She yelled, useless, lazy witches. Feeble, fribbling witches. You are a heap of idle, good-for-nothing verms. Is that supposed to be germs? A shudder went through the audience. The Grand High Witch was clearly in an ugly mood, and they knew it. I had a feeling that something awful was going to happen soon. I am having my breakfast this morning, cried the Grand High Witch, and I am looking out of the window at the beach. And what am I seeing? I am asking you, what am I seeing? I am seeing a revolting sight. I am seeing hundreds, I am seeing thousands of rotten, repulsive little children playing on the sand. It is putting me right off my food. Why have you not got rid of them? She screamed. Why have you not rubbed them all out, these filthy, smelly children? With each word she spoke, flecks of pale blue phlegm shot from her mouth like little bullets. I am asking you why? Nobody answered her question. Children smell, she screamed. They stink out the world. We do not want these children around here. The bald heads of the audience all nodded vigorously. One child a week is no good to me, the Grand High Witch cried out. Is that the best you can do? We will do much better, murmured the audience. We will do much better. Better is no good either. shrieked the Grand High Witch. "I demand maximum results. So here are my orders. My orders are that every single child in this country shall be rubbed out, squashed." I don't know how to put the V's in there, so there are V's in these words, but I don't know how to. Squirted, squittered, and frittered before I come here again in 1 year's time. Do I make myself clear? A great gasp went up from the audience. I saw the witches all looking at one another with deeply troubled expressions, and I heard one witch at the end of the row saying aloud, "All of them? We can't possibly wipe out all of them." The Grand High Witch whipped round as though someone had stuck a skewer into her bottom. "Who said that?" she snapped. "Who dares to argue with me?" "It was you, was it not?" She pointed a gloved finger as sharp as a needle at the witch who had spoken. "I didn't mean it, your grandness," the witch cried out. "I didn't mean to argue. I was just talking to myself." "You dare to argue with me!" screamed the Grand High Witch. "I was just talking to myself," cried the wretched witch. "I swear it, your grandness." She began to shake with fear. The Grand High Witch took a step forward, and when she spoke again, it was in a voice that made my blood run cold. "A stupid witch who answers back must burn until her bones are black." She screamed. "No, no!" begged the witch in the front row. The Grand High Witch went on. "A foolish witch without a brain must sizzle in the fiery flame." "Save me!" cried the wretched witch in the front row. The Grand High Witch took no notice of her. She spoke again. "An idiotic bitch like you must roast upon the barbecue." "Forgive me, oh your grandness," cried the miserable culprit. "I didn't mean it." But the Grand High Witch continued with her terrible recital. "A witch who dares to say I'm wrong will not be with us very long." A moment later, a stream of sparks that looked like tiny white-hot metal fillings came shooting out of the Grand High Witch's eyes and flew straight towards the other one who dared to speak. I saw the sparks striking against her and burrowing into her, and she screamed a horrible howling scream, and a puff of smoke rose up around her. A smell of burning meat filled the room. Nobody moved. Like me, they were all watching the smoke, and when it had cleared away, the chair was empty. I caught a glimpse of something wispy white, like a little cloud, fluttering upwards and disappearing out of the window. A great sigh rose up from the audience. The Grand High Witch glared around the room. "I hope nobody else is going to make me cross today," she remarked. There was a deadly silence. "Frizzled like a fritter," the High Witch, "cooked like a carrot. You will never see her again. Now we can get down to business." Man, frizzled like a fritter. Did you eat her then? She's like non-existent. In the image, it's just like a pile of ash. That's not like a fritter, and I don't think they destroy the fritter. Formula 86 Delayed Action Mouse Maker. "Children are revolting," screamed the Grand High Witch. "We will wipe them all away." I'm not even trying with the V's anymore. I can't. Oh my gosh. "We will scrub them off off the face of the earth. We will flush them down the drain." "Yes, yes," chanted the audience. "Wipe them away. Scrub them off the earth. Flush them down the drain." "Children are foul and filthy," thundered the Grand High Witch. They are, chorused the English witches. "They are foul and filthy. Children are dirty and stinky," screamed the Grand High Witch. "Dirty and stinky," cried the audience, getting more and more worked up. "Children are smelling of dogs' droppings," screeched the Grand High Witch. "Pooh!" Cried the audience. "Pooh, pooh, pooh." Okay, yet again, just like last time, prepubescent boys, don't start snickering. Don't start. You can do it. There's child moments where you may snicker because it's catered towards children. I believe. I have faith. Don't snicker. "They are worse than dogs dropping," screeched the Grand High Witch. "Dogs dropping is smelling like violets and primroses compared with children." "Violets and primroses," chanted the audience. They were clapping and cheering almost every word spoken from the platform. The speaker seemed to have them completely under her spell. "To talk about children is making me sick," screamed the Grand High Witch. I am feeling sick even thinking about them. Fetch me a basin. The Grand High Witch paused and glared at the mass of eager faces in the audience. They waited, wanting more. So now, barked the Grand High Witch, so now I am having a plan. I am having a giganticus plan for getting rid of every single child in the whole of England. The witches gasped. They gaped. They turned and gave each other ghoulish grins of excitement. Yes, thundered the Grand High Witch, we shall squish them and swallop them, and we shall make them disappear, every single smelly little brat in England, in one stroke. Whoopee! Cried the witches, clapping their hands. You are brilliant, oh, your grandness. You are fantabulous. Shut up and listen, snapped the Grand High Witch. Listen very carefully and let us not be having any muck-ups. I'm sorry. But just, the Grand High Witch reminds me of one of my friends very vaguely. They should know who they are. They should know who they are. I don't know if they're chill with name drops either, so I'll just say one thing that'll let them know specifically, because I don't know if they'll know or anyone else will know, so we gotta beg. War with Aphrodite. Now they shall know that I am talking about them. The audience leaned forward, eager to learn how this magic was going to be performed. Each and every one of you, thundered the Grand High Witch, is to go back to your hometowns immediately and resign from your jobs. Resign, give notice, retire. We will, they cried, we will resign from our jobs. And after you have resigned from your jobs, the Grand High Witch went on, each and every one of you will be going out and you will be buying. What? She paused. What will we be buying? They cried. Tell us, O brilliant one, what is it we shall be buying? Sweet shops, shouted the Grand High Witch. Sweet shops, they cried. We are going to buy sweet shops? What a frumptuous wheeze! Each of you will be buying for herself a sweet shop. You will be buying the very best and most respectable sweet shops in England. We will, they answered. Their dreadful voices were like a chorus of dentist drills. Why are you back? Ugh, that was my sister again. She opened the door, said, "Doing your mom," and then closed it and left. Their dreadful voices were like a chorus of dentist drills, all grinding away together. I am wanting no two-penny, halfpenny, crummy little tobacco-selling newspaper sweet shop, shouted the Grand High Witch. I am wanting you to get only the very best shops filled up high with piles and piles of luscious sweets and tasty chalks. Sorry, headphone users. The best, they cried. We shall buy the best sweet shops in town. You will be having no trouble in getting what you want, shouted the Grand High Witch, because you will be offering 4 times as much as a shop in worth. And nobody is refusing an offer like that. Money is not a problem to us witches, as you know very well. I have brought with me 6 trunks stuffed full of English banknotes, all new and crisp, and all of them, she added with a fiendish leer, all of them homemade. The witches in the audience grinned, appreciating this joke. At that point, one foolish witch got so excited at that she leapt to her feet at the possibilities presented by owning a sweet shop that she leapt to her feet and shouted, "The children will come flocking to my shop, and I will feed them poisoned sweets and poisoned chalks and wipe them all out like weasels." The room became suddenly silent. I saw the tiny body of the Grand High Witch stiffen and then go rigid with rage. "Who spoke?" she shrieked. "It was you! You over there!" The culprit sat down fast and covered her face with her clawed hands. "You blithering bumpkin!" she screeched the Grand High Witch. "You brainless bog-wumper." Bog-thumper? I don't know. "Are you not realizing that if you are going around poisoning little children, you will be caught in 5 minutes flat? Never in my life am I hearing such a bosh-walloping suggestion coming from a witch." The entire audience covered and shook. I'm quite sure that they all thought, as I did, that the terrible white hot sparks were about to start flying again. Curiously enough, they didn't. If such a tom-fiddling idea is all you can be coming up with, thundered the Grand High Witch, then it is no wonder England is still swarming with rotten little children. There was another silence. The Grand High Witch glared at the witches in the audience. Do you not know, she shouted at them, that we witches are working only with magic? We know, your grandness, they all answered. Of course we know. The Grand High Witch grated her bony gloved hands against each other and cried out, so each of you is owning a magnificent sweet shop. The next move is that each of you will be announcing in the window of your shop that on a certain day you will be having a great gala opening with free sweets and chalks to every child. That will bring them in, the greedy little brutes, cried the audience. They'll be fighting to get through the doors. Next, continued the Grand High Witch, you will be preparing yourselves for this great gala opening by filling every chalk and every sweet in your shop with my very latest and greatest magic formula. This is known as Formula 86 Delayed Action Mouse Maker. Delayed Action Mouse Maker, they chanted. She's done it again. Her grandness has concocted yet another of her wondrous magic child killers. How do we make it, O brilliant one? Exercise patience, answered the Grand High Witch. First, I am explaining to you how my Formula 86 Delayed Action Mouse Maker is working. Listen carefully. We are listening, cried the audience, who were now jumping up and down in their chairs with excitement. Delayed Action Mouse Maker is a green liquid, explained the Grand High Witch, and one droplet in each chalk or sweet will be quite enough. So here is what happens. Child eats chalk which has in it Delayed Action Mouse Maker liquid. Child goes home feeling fine. Child goes to bed still feeling fine. Child wakes up in the morning still okay. Child goes to school still feeling fine. Formula, you understand, is delayed action and it's not working yet. We understand, oh Brady one, cried the audience, but when does it start working? It is starting to work at exactly 9 o'clock when the child is arriving at school, shouted the Grand High Witch triumphantly. Child arrives at school. Delayed Action Mouse Maker immediately starts to work. Child starts to shrink. Child is starting to grow fur. Child is starting to grow tail. All is happening in precisely 26 seconds. After 26 seconds, child is not a child any longer. It is a mouse. A mouse, cried the witches. What a frumptuous thought. Classrooms will be swarming with mice, shouted the Grand High Witch. Chaos and pandemonium will be reigning in every school in England. Teachers will be hopping up and down. Women teachers will be standing on desks and holding up skirts and yelling, help, help, help. They will, cried the audience. And what, shouted the Grand High Witch, is happening next in every school? Tell us, they cried. Tell us, O brainy one. The Grand High Witch stretched her stringy neck forward and grinned at the audience, showing 2 rows of pointed teeth, slightly blue. She raised her mouth louder than ever and shouted, Mousetraps is coming out. Mousetraps, cried the witches, and cheese, shouted the Grand High Witch. Teachers all rushing and running out and getting mousetraps and baiting them with cheese and putting them down all over school. Mice is nibbling cheese. Mousetraps is going off. All over school, Mousetraps is going snappity snap, and Mouse heads is rolling all across the floor like marbles. All over England, in every school in England, noise of snapping mousetraps will be heard. At this point, the disgusting old Grand High Witch, began to do a sort of witch's dance up and down the platform, stamping her feet and clapping her hands. The entire audience joined in the clapping and the foot stamping. They were making such a tremendous racket that I thought surely Mr. Stringer would hear it and come banging at the door, but he didn't. Then above all the noise, I heard the voice of the Grand High Witch screaming out some sort of an awful gloating song. Down with children, do them in, boil their bones and fry their skin, bish them, squish them, bash them, mash them, break them, shake them, slash them, smash them, offer chopped with magic powder, say eat up, then say it louder, cram them full of sticky sweets, send them home still guzzling sweets. Oh, sticky eats, send them home still guzzling sweets. And in the morning, little fools go marching off to separate schools. A girl feels sick and goes all pale. She yells, hey, look, I've grown a tail. A boy who's standing next to her screams, help, I think I'm growing fur. Another shouts, we look like freaks. There's whiskers growing on our cheeks. A boy who was extremely tall cries out, what's wrong? I'm growing small. 4 tiny legs begin to sprout from everybody round about. And all at once, all in tries, there are no children, only mice. In every school is mice galore, all running round the schoolroom floor. and all the poor demented teachers is yelling, who are these creatures? They stand upon the desks and shout, come out, get out, you filthy mice, get out. Will someone fetch the mousetraps, please? And don't forget to bring the cheese. Now mousetraps come and every trap goes snippy snip and snappy snap. Where was I? The mousetraps have a powerful spring. The springs go crack and snap and ping. Is lovely noise for us to hear. Is music to a witch's ear. Did mice's every place around, piled 2 feet deep upon the ground, with teachers searching left and right, but not a single child in sight. The teachers cry, what's going on? Oh, where have all the children gone? It's 9:30, and as a rule, they're never late as this for school. Poor teachers don't know what to do. Some sit and read, and just a few amuse themselves throughout the day by sweeping all the mice away. And all us witches shout hooray. And I think that's a good stopping point. Look, I made it through a full hour. Ugh. I'm so proud of myself. And I'm sorry for all the times I coughed and, like, it was aggressively loud compared to the rest of, like, speaking that I was doing. I'm sorry for, like, how that must have sounded and how that must have hurt your ears. Next time I am sick, like, after my throat is fine and stuff, I'll record some, like, random backup things. Like, I have some short books or short readings that I can do as, like, replacement things for in case, like, I get sick and I can't do a proper recording. So I'll probably stockpile some of those and have them just in case I get sick again or, like, sore throat or something like that. If I remember. Please let me remember. So, thank you for tuning in. I think I've apologized enough for the coughing. Is there anything else I want to... Oh my god, my leg. Oh, haha. Oh, ignore that. My leg just, like, decided to be in pain for a moment there. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, random thing. I think maybe I can end with, like, a show recommendation or something. Because I'm a gremlin, I suppose. But, on Netflix, there's this show called Hilda. If you haven't heard of it already, amazing soundtrack. I love the, like, plot line and stuff. Instead of season 3, they put out a movie, so, like, to have everything in context, I recently rewatched the entire series. It is grand. It's a very fun time. And there's, like, a lot of random creatures. My favorite is probably the Woffs, and that's not really a spoiler or anything, because they're, like, not really plot relevant, so don't worry about knowing about those if you are like, how dare she just tell us one of the creatures? It's not really significant. They're little, like, furry little ball things with tails, and they're big, and they're in the sky. So, if you like cutesy little cartoons about, like, I'm not sure how to explain it. I think a quick summary is, like, a girl from a wilderness enters the city and has hijink adventures from how she was in the wilderness translating into city life. I think would be a good way to explain it. But it's a good watch. It's cute. I enjoyed it very much. So, would recommend. And if you don't want to watch, look up the Hilda soundtrack because the music is great. I think one of the songs has been on TikTok. It's Fool by, like, I forget the artist now. It's the one where it's like, you make me feel like a fool. Oh my god, why did I just sing? Like, that one? I think I've seen it in compilations recently on YouTube. So, if you don't watch the show, find the soundtrack. It's fun anyway. But I think that's good enough for today. Thanks for tuning in. I said that already. Bye.